Today I'm going to talk to you guys about how to install the front suspension arms on a KMD-FR01 chassis. Now, most of the parts you're going to need in order to install the front suspension system. Now, the front suspension system is mainly based on a PN arm front suspension system, but a lot of these parts here are repurposed, so they're actually used for different things. Now, you can use any one of these kinds of knuckles. This is the KMD-FR01 knuckle. And here's a stock Kyosho knuckle and an R247 metal knuckle. So any one of those knuckles will work. But if you're using the R247 knuckle, then you want to make sure that it's a 0 degree. So it's not 1 degree camber or 2 degree camber, because of course you can adjust the camber on a KMD-FR01. You will need 4 kingpins from a Formula 1 Kyosho Formula 1 car. These 4 kingpins are actually hinge pins now, so they actually go through suspension arms and hold the suspension arms onto the chassis. This kingpin here, it was made by Reflex Racing, I believe, or Atomic, and it has a ball on the end and a very long shaft with a threaded top. We'll be making those in the future. If you can't get a hold of one of these, then of course the other option is to simply use a very long 2mm thread, and you're going to need then 4 of these metal balls from a MC3 front suspension system. The first thing we're going to do is simply file away the rough part of the 2 inside portions of the lower arm. So just take a nice file here, sand it nice and flat. Don't take off too much material, just enough to get off the rough part from the 3D printed material. Okay, if you want to, you can go in afterwards with sandpaper and sand the 2 pieces down. You're also going to want to do the same thing on your chassis. So right in here, you're going to file down the front part as well as the rear part. Next step is to open up the holes in the arms. So you can take the arms here and put a 2mm drill bit through. Just actually scrape it back and forth like this. That actually makes it the smoothest. So instead of rotating it, just actually scrape it back and forth like here, or wiggle it back and forth. So do that to all of the arms, and then do that to the right now to the lower part of the chassis. So you're going to once again put the 2mm drill bit through this hole. You might have to start with a smaller one, like in this case this doesn't go fit through, so you start with a smaller drill bit. You're going to notice a lot of powder will come out from the 3D printed material, so just put that through and then slowly open it up. Now you're going to want to slide the kingpin through the upper, or so this is the lower arm and the bottom of the chassis, and make sure that the arm can move easily up and down. Now if it's really tight, then you're probably going to have to use your drill bit and open up the holes on the arms again, or you can apply some oil, or maybe you didn't file down the insides enough. So any one of those options you're going to need to do in order to make sure that it easily rotates nice and smoothly up and down. Okay, so now you're going to take your PN spring pin. That's this one right here from a PN AA-arm front suspension system, and your PN front AA-arm front suspension spring with a PN spring holder. And on the KMD-FR01 chassis, it's actually meant to install the spring from the rear. Flip the car over. And then just simply screw in the pin. Once again, making sure that you're not going to strip the thread on the spring post. Lots of options on how you're going to attach the knuckle to your lower arm. So once again, you can either use this specially made kingpin with a threaded top. Once again, I think we're going to come up with that sooner than later. Or you can use a very long machine threaded screw with a MC3 ball. Okay, so I'm going to show you both of those options right now. Simply insert it into that lower portion. At first, you probably won't need to use the set screws in order to keep the ball stable, because it is a very good fit. But over time, it will wear out, so you might want to put a machine screw in there just to keep it nice and tight. So in this case, when you've installed that ball, you just simply now need to put any one of the 3 knuckles over top. Now, if you're using a Kyosho knuckle, like this one, then you want to install spring holder into the top, so upside down into the top. That will take out some of the friction. So here's an example of that. You're going to take this spring holder, anyone from any one of the MC3 chassis, and you're simply going to push it into the knuckle. You can actually even super glue that in place if you want to. Your other option, of course, is to use an MC3 style metal ball, and then you're going to feed the machine screw. It's a 2mm machine screw up through the ball, and then once again put any one of the knuckles on top. So this is the KMD-FR01 knuckle. You can just simply rest it on top like that. So you're simply going to install the sleeve from the rear, making sure that the slot on the suspension sleeve is facing the rear. This will allow you to use a flat screwdriver later on to rotate the sleeve inside the upper mount so that you can adjust camber in the FR01 chassis. Push it all the way forward will give you 0 degrees of caster, and of course if you push it further back you'll get more caster, so positive caster. So once again, when you have the sleeve in position, you're going to tighten the top machine screw, and that will prevent the sleeve from moving forward or backward. So you're going to take your small drill bit, insert it through the sleeve just to try and open up the hole, and then once again get larger and larger. Once again, because this is the sleeve, it's not supposed to, the pin is not supposed to rotate around that. Don't open it up too much. File down the sleeve on either side. Okay, once that's all done, you're going to simply put a type of ball up here. You can use a metal ball. This is a Delrin ball, same thing from an MC3 front suspension system, and you're just going to insert that in there. And once you have it all in place, you're going to take a kingpin and put the kingpin all the way through. The final step, of course, is to put a wheel nut on top here to secure the upper arm and the lower arm together. Notice right now I installed it. It's a little bit too tight, so that means the knuckle doesn't move very easily side to side. So in this case, it's going to affect the servo. So you can't make that. It's also going to bind the suspension up and down. So what we want to do is actually loosen that a little bit, so that now you can see the knuckle rotates a lot easier and the suspension will move up and down a lot freer. Here I have the front suspension system completely installed with the front bumper and tow bar. So once again, you want to check to make sure that the servo is working correctly. If you want to adjust your caster, then you're simply going to unscrew your machine screw right here, and then you can just slide the arm backward to get more caster, or forward to get less caster. Okay? If you want to adjust your camber setting, then you're actually going to need to loosen that screw. You need to pull out the pin, the suspension pin. Okay, you can keep everything else intact. Remove the front arm just slightly off to the side like that. Rotate it left or right. If the hole is further away or closer to the inside of the chassis, you're going to have more camber. And if you rotate the hole so that it's closer to the wheel, you're going to have less camber.